Hello, ladies, and welcome back to my channel. I'm David, you're David, we're all David, and welcome to Dismantling Hate, the series where we look at some hateful online rhetoric. And today we're going to take another misogynistic look at the creator called Matt Walsh. Now, the video that we're going to be watching is, no, your male friendships shouldn't have more emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence, as we know, is for sissies. Of course, that's a joke, and that's highly misogynistic. And emotional intelligence is an important skill that everybody should have no matter their gender identity, but we will get into that. But before we get started, please do not go leave any hate comments to any of the creators that I feature in my videos. These videos are meant to be entertaining and a little bit educational, so I do not want you to participate in the culture of hate that we are working so diligently to dismantle, both on this channel and around the world. If you like the sound of my voice, consider subscribing to the channel, like the video if you like, and let me know what you think in the comments. So without further ado, I'm going to slide on over and we're going to figure out why Matt Walsh thinks that your male friendships do not need more emotional intelligence. I'm on the edge of my misogynistic seat, so let's get into it.
Well, it's not every day that a tweet thread from an anonymous account called Meatball Times serves as the jumping off point for our daily cancellation segment, but this is that day. Meatball went somewhat viral over the weekend with a lengthy diatribe about the need for men to build emotional intelligence, quote unquote. And his rantings are only worthy of consideration because they unintentionally illustrate a very important point about the nature of masculinity and the challenges that men face in modern culture. Now, this person's not trying to illustrate that point. In fact, he's reaching desperately for something like the opposite point. But in the attempt, he inadvertently provides a learning opportunity for all of us. So let's read it. Quote, I've been feeling very undernourished in my male friendships recently. I think there's something just kind of wrong with the default mode of male socialization / communication, something men aren't taught about relating to people. For instance, I've known this guy for 15 years. I was his best man at his wedding. I told him recently about a suicidal episode of someone I love recently, and I also have a close family friend lying about having cancer for 2 years and how it was killing me, crying. My male friend's response to me crying on his sofa, dude, I'm sorry, that's crazy. What topping do you want on your pizza? What the F? Friends for 15 years? This is his response? Not all guys are like this, but could you imagine literally any woman doing this? I realized several years ago that I could spend hours talking to my male friends and not learn a single thing about them. I always am the one to ask personal questions. And when I ask guys about their divorce or whatever, a solid 1/3 of them, like, shrug? Hello?
There's something to be said here about the gender binary, because we're definitely looking at this from a lens of male and female, and women are like this and men are like this. And I think that participates in the gender binary maybe a little bit too much for my personal liking, because it's a sweeping generalization. You can't say that all men behave like this and that all women behave like this, or rather that specific traits are inherently masculine or feminine and should be attributed to their respective genders, because masculinity and femininity is a social construct and inherently means nothing. However, there are stereotypes, and those stereotypes are derived from patterns of behavior. And unfortunately, most masculinized people in our society, I wouldn't even say that, I would say most non-queer masculinized people in our society are taught that showing feelings, showing emotion, showing care for other human beings is seen as something that is weak. And I think that is the problematic part here. Because I've been around these kinds of masculinized people where you don't learn anything about them when you talk to them. They don't really have the emotional bandwidth in order to meet you where you are when you're going through things that are troubling, like Meatball here is talking about. This isn't Meatball the drag queen, but it could be. No, I don't think it is. Anyway, but I think ultimately it comes down to people, because I have met feminized people who are like this as well. So it's not necessarily only looking through the lens of like, men act like this, but you even watching this and thinking about this right now, I know you can picture a masculinized person in your life who behaves like this. So it is a sweeping generalization, but I do understand where we're coming from. But I think it's harmful to look at things and go, well, only men act like this. I don't think we should be fighting for more emotional intelligence in men. I think we should be fighting for more emotional intelligence. Period. Because there's a lot of people that don't have emotional intelligence. It's a skill that not only gets you farther in your relationships and your social life, but also your academic life, your professional life, your love life. Like every facet of your life, in my opinion, is vastly improved when you have better social skills and a higher emotional intelligence. And that's my opinion. So now let's see what Matt Walsh has to say.
Oh. Now the diatribe continues from here, but let's pause to consider a few points. First of all, I'm trying to imagine how I might react if a guy came up to me and told me that he feels undernourished by my friendship.
I did happen to look through the comments, and they were so bad. They weren't even They weren't even sexist. They were also homophobic. There's a little bit of transphobia sprinkled in there. But what can we expect from the audience that watches Matt Walsh's nonsense content like this? So it's to be expected, but it's not to be excused. It was still very problematic. Yeah, and undernourished, I don't know. Like, undernourished makes sense and might have been the appropriate language to employ here. But I think you definitely leave yourself open for criticism. I don't know. But that's me. I'm like, okay, undernourished, that sounds feminine, which is problematic in itself. And I hate that my brain thinks that. But I think that's where he's going with this too. So I can understand where he might be attempting to come from, but ultimately you're assigning gender to a word. And that's problematic. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm assigning gender to the word and he's not going to do that. But I'm almost positive that he's going to be like, that sounds kind of gay.
That daughter, I have no gay son.
But we'll see.
I think I'd probably say a bunch of things that I can't say here, but the basic gist would be that I'm glad that I'm not nourishing you. What am I?
Exactly. Is that thought daughter and I had a gay son. Like, that sounds pretty gay. If you're nourishing somebody else, he's attributing the idea of nourishment not in an emotional way, but in a sexual way, which is the subtext, in my opinion, what he's delivering here. But why shouldn't you feel emotionally nourished by all of your relationships? Like, not all of them, but the ones that you choose to participate in, like your auxiliary relationships, you should feel nourished by them, even though it sounds kind of gay.
Cal, like, why are you looking to me for nourishment, you freak?
Exactly.
I can never hang out with you again after a comment like that. Now that I know that you're sitting over there expecting nourishment.
Like, he's just, you get it. You can hear how he's making this sound. Like, he's making it sound like it's going to involve something that's not emotional. And he's making it sound like it's something that is not normal, because human beings, we're social beings, we're conversational beings. We need that amount of feeling seen and feeling heard and feeling valued. And feeling heard is so close to being seen that the human brain usually can't feel the difference. So if you're not making your friends feel heard when they're talking to you about difficult things in your life, you're not a good friend. You're not a good friend. I'm sorry. But Matt Walsh is also not a good friend. I don't know if he's a good anything, but I don't know enough about the man, and thank God for that.
Although I guess being told by a friend that I'm not nourishing him isn't the worst thing in the world. That's the second worst thing. The worst thing is if he came up to me and said, thank you for your friendship, Matt. It's very nourishing. That would be the worst. It's like, I didn't mean to be nourishing you. I don't know what's going on here, but something's gone wrong here.
But it would stand to reason that he's being very nourishing to his fellow misogynistic, transphobic, and homophobic friends. He's nourishing hate, but he's not going to nourish your well-being. Oh no, that would be gay. I have to be hateful.
In either case, this is not how men speak to each other. And it certainly makes one suspect that the author of this thread is not a man at all. By the language he's using, you'd think that he's like a 24-year-old female.
Yeah, we're not going to go ahead and assign gender to language. That doesn't make any sense, and it sets up and perpetuates a harmful stereotype that language has a gender, which it just doesn't. Language is cultural. Language is not gendered, right? Like, maybe that's not how you think somebody would talk in America, but we go to any other country in the world, and then once you get outside of English, the way that verbs are conjugated and just the way that adjectives are feminized or masculinized, like, language is such a huge part of this. So it's not appropriate, or rather free from fallacy, for you to assign gender to any sort of linguistic topography. This is how I'm starting my morning. I'm so tired. I'm gonna drink my coffee and hopefully I don't have a spit take for what's coming next.
A representative who graduated from NYU with a major in queer poetry or whatever. And maybe that's the case. But let's take him at his word for the purpose of this conversation and assume that he really is a dude who speaks like that and yet somehow still gets invited over for pizza night with the boys, which, again, is hard to imagine. So, okay then. Tells us that he went to his friend's house and starts crying on his couch. His friend offers him a quick supportive word and then tries to get back to ordering the pizza. Meatball wants us to see his friend as the bad guy in this exchange, even though he's the one not only crying like a girl on his friend's couch, but even worse, doing it while his friend is in the middle of trying to order the pizza.
Yeah, how? God, this is so stupid. Yeah, how inconsiderate for you to have some hard things going on in your life when I'm trying to order a damn pizza from Domino's, you inconsiderate fuck. That would be the ultimate episode of Dismantling Hate, would be me reacting to, or rather being in the presence of Matt Walsh in a social context with his friends that he's not providing any nourishment to. And he said that Meatball was attempting to make it seem like his friend who wasn't nourishing him is the bad guy. And I don't think that's the point. I don't think there really is a bad guy. Maybe except for this man. Anyway, it's not that like you're a bad person. It's that it's illuminating to a larger systemic social issue when you have a whole section of the population that is emotionally unavailable, and that leads to discrimination up to and including violence against feminized people. So it's just, I wonder if Matt Walsh is married. Somebody check on that wife if he's married. I think there's a ring. I think there's a ring.
So Meatball's committed multiple violations of the man code in this story.
Ew, man code, gross. Gross. And you don't think that upholding this weird idea of the man code isn't some form of emotional intelligence? Does this man know what emotional intelligence means? Is he only using it in like the queer he's only using it in the queer context, or in the, but it's not even the queer context, but he's almost assigning it to the queer context because feelings are gay. Well, if that's true, then I'm gay. And if a lot of other things are true, I'm also gay. Anyway.
Violation number 1, crying in front of another man. Violation number 2.
No. This is only a 13-minute video. How is this going to take so long if you can't cry in front of your friends? Well, it has nothing to do with gender. I would have some female friends that would be uncomfortable if I was crying in front of them. I would have some male friends that would be uncomfortable if I was crying in front of them. I don't care if anybody cries in front of me. Feelings don't scare me. I think that's very immature. Feelings don't scare me. I've done an incredible amount of personal work to work on my emotional intelligence. Oh, God. Matt Walsh would hate me so hard, but that's okay. That's okay. And I don't hate Matt Walsh. I just think that he's perpetuating a really harmful stereotype that contributes to a lot of discrimination out in the world. And of course he isn't privy to that discrimination because he appears to me to be a white, straight, cisgender man. And that's and that's me throwing the liberal sink at him. I think he said that before. I don't know. It's early. Leave me alone.
Crying in front of another man at his house. Violation number 3. Distracting a man while he's trying to order pizza.
Is this satirical? Somebody tell me this is satirical. This can't be real. Yeah, it would be different if you were crying in front of a man at the park, right? Take your man friend out on a date and cry with him there, but there can't be food involved, or else that's bad. 'Cause man need pizza. Man, no feelings. That's what we're serving here.
Now, the friend, we can assume he's married. So he already has to deal with that sort of thing with his wife.
Oh, God. Yeah, my wife is already crying too much. I don't need that gay shit from my friends.
Women are infamous for this kind of thing. They're infamous for not staying focused and on message while food is being ordered.
Are you kidding me? Like, sure, even if that is... I don't even need to say. Because if you're still here, we're on the same page.
Like the other day I was trying to order Chinese. I asked my wife, like, what do you want from the Chinese place? She launches into like a 7-minute story that's completely irrelevant to the Chinese. I'm like, I'm sitting here.
God, yeah, I hate listening to my wife too. She just needs to shut up.
We can talk about that, but do you want General So's? What do you want? What are we doing here? We got to get the food handled first, and then we can have a conversation. And now this guy, he has to deal with the same sort of thing when he invites dudes over for pizza. Like, it's unconscionable to put a man in that position. I'm sorry you had a loved one who faked cancer. That's weird, but like, what exactly does that have?
Yeah, dude, that's weird, but I think we should just have pizza. I can't. It's 8 a.m. and this is what I'm subjecting myself to. And so are you. It's probably not 8 a.m. for you because you probably make better life choices. But thanks for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Papa John's. I don't understand why you're bringing this up right now. And what does Meatball want from his friend here? The guy said he was sorry. Okay, check. He said it was crazy. Check, it is crazy. What else is there to say? Especially a story like that. Like, that's what I don't know what else to say. My loved one faked cancer.
But that's exactly it. You don't know what to say. And that's the problem. That's the lack of emotional intelligence. And if you have a lack of emotional intelligence to deliver to your friends when they need it, you also have a lack of emotional intelligence to show your partner when they need it, your kids when they need it. And then it just continues the same cycle of people that don't have emotional intelligence. Because it stands to reason that if this man had a daughter, he would pass on, to some extent, probably, in my opinion, his lack of emotional skills and emotional intelligence to his daughter. And then that just creates an environment and culture where people don't care about each other, or rather don't have the skills to care about each other. And that's a gross world. And I don't want to live in that world.
That's super weird, man. Sorry that happened.
It's very like, dude, where's my car? Dude, where are the emotions? Dude, where's the pizza?
What kind of cancer did he fake? Like, what do you want, questions? But he acknowledged your sob story, he offered condolences, and then he tried to redirect back to the pizza instead of letting you indulge any further in your pity party. That's what men do. It's how men
No, and talking about your feelings isn't a pity party. It can be, it has the potential to be, but no, that's not what this is. He really thinks he's doing something out here. I cannot believe that he... I cannot believe this man.
each other. We don't wallow together in our emotions. In fact, if I have any...
Sorry, anger is an emotion, and people of your kind, and I'm going to say that with my whole chest, your kind, emotional intelligence, alpha males, alpha male is such a cringe. And unless you're a, what is it? Unless you're a gray-backed gorilla, gray-chested, silver-backed gorilla, there's no alphas in human culture. It just doesn't, oh.
criticism of the friend in this exchange is that he didn't make fun of the other guy for crying. That's the...
Oh my God, that's where the bar is. The bar is in hell. If that's what you're if that's what you're saying is the good part of this, is like, hey, he didn't make fun of you for crying like a little baby. Yeah, you're gonna cry like a little baby. Like it's giving middle school vibes. And this is like Matt Walsh is the grown-up version of Nelson from The Simpsons. Like no emotional, ha 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 ha. I can't really do it. It's too early. I'm not vocally warmed up to really, throw my whole chest into that one, but
place where he dropped the ball. And I can only take solace in the assumption that the next time they hang out, if there is a next time, the friend will find an opportunity to make a joke about Meatball's crying fit. And then to make a joke about it every time he sees him from here until they die.
What a sad reality for what he's perpetuating is the typical male friendship. That's so sad. That's so sad. Like, this is harmful and all of that, but like, think of the men out there in the world, and like women too. It stands to reason that women can have this kind of relationship, but he's framing it through the idea of male relationships. What a sad reality. That is so depressing for these men, because they have emotional needs as well. And if they're not being met by their friends, that's sad. Oh, that's so sad. Some of my most meaningful conversations where I feel the most nourished come from the male friendships I have in my life. Oh boy.
It doesn't have to be anything clever, by the way. I mean, just as soon as he sits on the couch, just say like, "Hey, you're not gonna start crying again, are you?" Something simple like that, just to...
That's not a joke. That's just mean. Like, a joke has to be something that's funny. Like, not has to be because I'm a woke liberal, but like a joke by definition is something that is funny. It's misdirection and a punchline, right? There's no misdirection there. The misdirection in this case is misogyny, which is not funny. But for our purposes here, for kind of laughing at this nonsense, it's kind of funny. It's not funny in ha-ha kind of way. It's funny ha, you know.
You fulfill your duty to give him crap for that, because that's what friends do, at least male friends. The Meatball relates this experience as proof that men are emotionally deficient, but it's not proof that men are emotionally deficient. It's proof that men are men. Men are not women. They are different, not deficient.
There's a whole subtext of transphobia that we've looked at here with Matt Walsh before, because I forget what episode it was, but the thumbnail says drag queens in the church, because I think he's religious, and it's really easy to uphold these kind of harmful misogynistic viewpoints if you are looking at it through the lens of religion. So it makes sense. It doesn't excuse it, but just so we understand where Matt Walsh is coming from if you don't know this man. And I really envy you if you don't know this man, but if you're still in this video, I'm sorry that you know this man now.
To each other differently. They express themselves differently. They have a different way of being and acting in the world, because men are men.
Not they have a different way of expressing themselves. It's that humans have different ways of expressing themselves. It's not exclusive to the made up It's not exclusive to the made up, socialized, cultural classifications of gender. It's just not, yeah.
We are not women. Meatball sees that as a defect, and he's not alone. The only reason we're talking about this post by some random guy is that it typifies a prevailing attitude in our culture. This has been the popular consensus among elites in our society, the philosophy that drives most of our institutions for decades now. Men are broken, they say, because they are too much like men and not enough like women. And the way to fix men is to make them like women. A woman is a kind of perfected man by this way of thinking.
What? I'm sorry. I have whiplash. Like, the bar is in hell. I can't. Like, this is.
Which, by the way, explains why trans ideology is so important to these people, but that's a thread we can follow another day.
Yeah.
But it's all nonsense, of course. It's extremely harmful nonsense. There is nothing wrong with how men in general relate to each other and express their emotions. We are more stoic.
And that's, oh God, all these sweeping generalizations, can't wait. And like, okay, if you have friend groups, if you have men in your life that relate to you like this and don't meet your emotional needs, and it's not even like it's their responsibility to meet your emotional needs, but if you're friends with somebody, you should be attempting to, like, I don't know, meet their emotional needs in the moment. Like, it's just part of relating to another human being. That is to say that if you have friendships like this and you're a man and your male friendships look like this where nobody supports you and they're just mean and it's just, man, eat pizza, man, no feelings. If that works for you, great, go for it. But don't project this onto the way you think all masculinized people in society should be. Because if everybody in the world was like this, actually, no, I was going to say I would be terrified of that. But no, I grew up in that culture where most everybody was like this. And it was very gross and very harmful. And I hated that community that I grew up in because it wasn't emotionally nourishing. And not that I'm like just some woke lefty that needs to be nourished. Like, it's neuroscience. The human brain, the humans are social beings. We are communicative beings. That's why we have language. It's
We are the more emotionally reserved sex.
Anger is an emotion, let us not forget, dear Walsh.
That's what we've always been. It's how we're naturally inclined. It's how we're...
Yeah, back when we should all just go back to when we were cave people. Things were better then.
It's also
It was better for the environment then. I'm pausing this a lot because this is insufferable. But I'm not surprised because that's what we signed up for. You know, that's what we're doing here, you know, the premise of the series. Anyway.
Society needs us to be. Okay, society cannot properly function if everyone is dwelling on their emotions all the time. Okay, then no pizza would ever get ordered. So some of us, about half of us, need to be able to shoulder our emotional burdens quietly.
Oh, no, that is so harmful. That is so harmful. That's why the rates of people unaliving themselves are the highest among men ages 18 to 25. That is so harmful and so gross and so disgusting that he's saying this. And we're talking here, and I'm laughing a lot. A lot of them are cope laughs because all of this is very harmful and gross and misogynistic. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are putting other male-identifying folks in harm's way when you're perpetuating things like this. It's not right. It's not right. It's harmful. And this is, I would argue that in some ways, this is borderline criminal.
It doesn't mean that we don't need support and friendship. It just means that support and friendship are different for us. Male friendships tend to be less intense. They tend to be more relaxed, less needy.
But all of these words are like very left up to interpretation. Like, what does intense and needy mean? That's all very anecdotal. That means something different to every single person. So it's not, these aren't quantifiable metrics. So yeah, it's just what one person deems as needy in the moment, and that doesn't help anybody.
Less demanding. That's not the wrong way to approach friendships. It's just a different way than how women approach them.
Well, if we look at the science, if we look at the data behind relationships and the way that shame impacts the human brain and the human experience, it does. And like, this man would argue with all of that because the bulk of these studies were done by women. Like, I think of Brene Brown, for example, a shame researcher. She's really great. I've read a lot of those books. I've read a lot of those studies. And so even though that data is there, this man would argue it because it was done by women and women don't know. And like, okay, they have people who, anyway, I don't know.
You know, I have friends that I've known for 30 years, and these days I see them once a year, maybe twice at most. There are years we go by where I don't see them at all. We never talk on the phone. We might text a few times over the year, usually during football season. I still consider them to be very good friends, and when I see them, it's just like old times. We also spend very little time catching up on each other's personal lives whenever we do see each other. And this is something that, you know, my wife doesn't understand. She doesn't understand how I can still consider those guys friends when I so rarely see or speak to them.
You don't have to see or speak to them, but if you're not catching somebody up on your personal life, like, isn't that all you are as a human being? Like, your experiences? Why wouldn't you want to share your experiences with your friends? I don't get that.
So if I say, oh, friends, you'll say, oh, yeah, when's the last time you talked to him? I don't know, 2021 maybe? So to her, that's like, it's impossible. You can't, doesn't make any sense. She doesn't understand how, when I do see and speak to them, we don't end up gabbing the whole time about all the things that happen in our personal lives.
So then what do you talk about? Your pizza order? That's it? That's so sad.
Last saw each other. And that's because if my wife goes several weeks, let alone months, without having any contact with somebody she considers a friend, it's like, it's a problem. Okay, it's a sign that something has gone wrong. And when they finally do talk again, they'll need to have like a heart-to-heart about the fact that they weren't talking before. So the fact of them not talking has to be a thing that they talk about before they can talk about anything else. And they'll talk about it, and tears might be shed, and it'll be a whole thing. And
like, that might be your wife's experience, but I don't think you can project that onto society as a whole. I've never really had that experience.
we're women. This is what women do. And that's fine for women. It's healthy for women, but it's not.
Oh, God. Like, cite your sources, Mary. Like, how is that? No.
To insist on that kind of behavior in men. Here's how Meatball wraps up his thread. Quote, I mostly just pity men at the not sure how I feel about my divorce levels of emotional intelligence. They're not dumb. They're confused. They lack the tools to introspect.
Oh, they lack the tools to introspect. Come on, Meatball. Dropping facts here at the target. Yeah.
They were never taught. The emotions are just going to sit in the pressure cooker in their heart, maybe forever.
Exactly. And that's how they end up with problems.
Society tells men to suppress their feelings. Women demand go to therapy, but female modes of expression are alienating to men.
I have misogynistic whiplash. That's a good band name. Write it down.
All the other men in your life are just as confused because if talking about the NBA isn't helping, they're out of ideas.
It's funny because that's kind of exact. He was talking about football season. Is that what that is? NBA? Is that football? I don't know. I don't participate in sports. I don't watch sports. I watch Drag Race because I'm just another woke lefty liberal.
No wonder guys feel nothing. Where can men go to learn how to feel things and support each other? Fraternal orders like the Masons or Elks, dead. Church, religion, dead. Strong, vulnerable men don't exist in media. Clubs, third spaces, military, dead.
I can agree with a lot of this.
Men unable to feel their feelings live confused lives, inflicting others, especially women, with the burden of feeling things for them or compensating for their total lack of self-awareness.
Yes. Come on, Meatball. Spitting facts. Yes.
We need dedicated spaces for men to build emotional intelligence.
Exactly. But how are you going to get them there? You can't trap them there. And most people who are so emotionally out of touch, like Matt Walsh, they're not going to that space. They're not going.
Where are they? Now, he's right. Many of the spaces he mentioned are dead. Male spaces are largely dead precisely because they all became feminized. Now, he sees the feminization of male spaces as the solution, when in fact it's exactly the problem. Elk lodges, bowling clubs, cigar lounges. I mean, there are still cigar lounges, thank God. But for the most part, none of these traditionally male spaces were ever designed to help men build emotional intelligence or learn how to feel things.
You know what? I can agree with that because you're not going to the cigar lounge to emotionally connect with your male friends. Maybe you were. That's a sweeping generalization, but that doesn't hit me as the typical norm.
Your grandpa, whoever, never went to the Elk Lodge because he wanted to learn how to feel things.
You know what? I agree with that. Somebody write it. Kylie, write that down. I agreed with something Matt Walsh said. It's an important moment, so I'm glad you're here for that.
These were designed as places where men could be how they are without any womanly lectures. But now there's nowhere to go.
Like, this is reading as like an old sitcom. Is this an SNL skit? This man cannot be real. He is rage baiting us. Because if he actually believes this, that is so sad.
The womanly lectures. Every space has been overtaken by scolding women and men who act like scolding women.
Oh, that's me. I got a special shout out.
Every space has to cater to women. That's the world we live in now. And there is no place that's allowed to not cater to women. The let boys be boys philosophy is dead.
Good. Because the phrase boys be boys is usually used to excuse the poor behavior in boys and men, and that's highly misogynistic and perpetuates discrimination, sometimes up to and including violence against feminized people.
Better than the lodges and the bowling clubs. Replaced with a very different mindset, which is now make boys be girls.
It's funny because nobody's saying that except him.
Some men, like our friend Meatball, have taken that call very much to heart. And that is why they are all today canceled.
I don't know what he means by cancel there, but I don't know what he means by most of this. So, babies, that brings us to the end of another episode of Dismantling Hate here on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really do appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel, like the video if you like, and let me know what you think down there in the comments. If you like the sound of my voice, you can listen to my podcast called D-Talk with David Day. That's me serving non-binary realness on the daily, which is something that I know Matt Walsh would just love. Anyway, you can listen to my podcast on Spotify. You can watch it on YouTube, do all the things. Become a certified amateur sleuth and find my link tree and follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks again so much for spending this time with me. I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the support. I love you, babes. And until the next one, goodbye.